Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As Ron said, Bill and I are going to split our quick presentation, primarily because I come to it from a very much an operator's trainee position. Bill is the technical director and has been very close up to the shipbuilder and the whole design process. And indeed, I'm delighted to welcome a couple of Asteroskondon folks here this afternoon to join us. So what are we going to do this afternoon? Those are my bullets. Make the introduction. Talk a little bit about why we're replacing the current ship. After all, she's not that old. Why are we needing to change her? How we got through the statement of requirement, how we developed that from our current need to what we perceive as the future need. Procurement strategy then, moving on through the timelines of design development. Some of the slides are quite busy, but I've left them in there because it will give you, post-event, a chance to look back and see all the hoops we went through or jumped as part of this process. So some I'll skim over, some a little bit more detail. Where we are thus far, and as Ron said, we haven't built it yet. It's coming along very nicely, but we haven't got to the final stage. And then most importantly, chance for perhaps a couple of questions at the end of our short presentation, but it may be better to leave them right to the end when we can talk to you as a collective. So why did we need to change Royalist? Whole host of issues there. As I said, it's 1971 Royalist was built, so she's not that old, but the youngsters have grown. They're a little bit bigger than they were back in the 70s. Legislation has changed. One or two factors have really affected us. Blackwater management, Blackwater holding. If you retrofit Blackwater tanks, it's never easy, and you've got the existing hull. So factors like that, which take life right down to the basic form, are the things that cause us to want to move forward and build a vessel that meets the current legislation and current requirements. Clearly, cost is always a driver. The older a vessel gets, the more expensive it is to maintain. And if you start with a shiny new hull, shiny new project, then hopefully the maintenance costs are going to drop right away in the early years. And of course, we've subjected this ship to many years of North Atlantic storms. There is always a wearing, there is always an aging of the hull, and it's nice to start with new hull life to take us forward. The current Royalist, which has just 1 week to run, has been hugely successful. What we want to do is replace that legacy for the next 40 years. Final one on the bottom there, lessons learned. Some of us have just come from John Lang's very good presentation on lessons learned. Clearly, when we were developing the design for this new vessel, we put in all those factors into account to make sure that we're achieving the best for the future. Quick look at what we want from our new cadet flagship. Well, actually, not very much change from the training we do at the moment. We probably take younger than most. We're down to age 13 and a half. 24 cadets a week works for us. It fills our vessel throughout a 9-month season, so no need to change there. But clearly performance, reliability, performance in all wet weather states, although we're not looking for particularly rough weather for sea cadets. 30-year life again. We've had a good life out of the previous vessel. We want to replicate that. Delivery by early next year, March next year. As I say, meeting all the current legislation, which has changed, and it must and feel to us like a good flagship of the fleet, and it must give the cadets that great experience which tall ship sailing gives. Albeit, we're right at the bottom end of the Class A spectrum, but it's still a tall ship. Lots of work goes on into new design. Lots of options are considered. And one must be very, very careful when you're designing a user requirement that you end up with what you want. The danger is a power-assisted, four-masted vessel could conceivably come out like that. That's not necessarily what we really wanted. On to some of the more detailed slides now. That one sort of encapsulates, as I said, the hoops, the milestones that we've had to go through to get from the start of the idea and the very notion of replacing Royalist back in 2008 to where we are today. Clearly, Royalist material state was a driver. The cost of maintenance, as I've mentioned before, was a driver. Not that she's not fit to go to sea. Clearly, she has her annual inspections. But it's all those funny little factors that make life more difficult. What I need is reliability out of the vessel, be able to fix a defect very quickly so it doesn't impact on the training program. With older equipment, you can't get hold of the bits, or the bits have to go to ashore to be worked on in a workshop, and you can't get the vessel online as quickly as you'd like. I can't afford to lose good training time. You'll see as I canter through those, statement of requirement was developed in draft back in 2008. Clearly that was matured over time. A procurement strategy, did we go for design and build, or separate design, then separate build contract? All those implications needed to be thought about and considered by the team, the steering group. Clearly, without any progress, we've got to fundraise. And we took the fundraising to one side with a separate team, and we were keen to raise the money before we hit the button on the contract for peace of mind. And I'm delighted to say, despite the current economic or recent economic climate, we achieved that. So we started the project with money in the bank, or certainly promised money in the bank, which was hugely reassuring. As time went on, clearly we consolidated our fundraising teams, we consolidated our steering group to make sure we had all the working components together to take this project forward. On to 2012, and life started to get busier. And again, I said before, I'm not going to go through every line of it, but one of the 2 points to bring out for you is that clearly we needed expertise. We're a very small organisation, not many of us in the team. When you're taking on a big project like that, you need some external support. And hopefully as a charity, we get that as cheaply as possible to help us through the process. So Babcocks were one group that have come on board to support us, and Graham Westbrook has given us a huge amount of square rigger expertise to help us with those aspects of the vessel. Clearly, we needed to cast the net wide to make sure we had lots of potential bidders for this process, and we started off with some 30 plus potential ship build yards, and clearly over time we refined that down till we got and eventually allocated the build yard that we've got today. A couple of moments just for you to look at that slide, but as I say, it'll be in the download, so if anybody wants to see the detail later on, you can. Moving on another year now to 2013. Clearly now we're refining it down. We're down to a minimum number of yards, making sure that they had all seen the current ship. They knew exactly what we wanted. Our statement of requirement had been refined so that the specification could be written. And that nightmarish job of trying to cope with everything in the specification, you sit down in the office in the winter thinking of lots of good ideas, but you've got to remember what life is like at sea and what we want at sea to make sure we get exactly what we need at the end of the deal. And as I say, throughout that process, as we triggered through, we eventually nominated Astilla Rosconden as our build yard. Visits to the yard were clearly important to see the quality of their work, and there are a few pictures of life taken down in Riverdale, which is about 2 hours drive along the coast from here. Clearly, we're refining the design at the final stages, and I'll now hand over to Bill to take you on through some pictures for the next bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My challenge as project manager was to have designed and built a vessel which is at least as good as the current TS Royalist. That is a huge challenge because of the excellent job that Colin Moody did in the end of the 1960s, along with Morin Scott, who was the then Sea Cadet Association guru, who really had the vision about sail training in a square rigger, which the Sea Cadets had not embarked on before. So this legacy is a huge challenge to follow. And in the design process, to move the statement of requirement, the outline requirement, into a more detailed specification that we could contract to, and yet was trying to outline what we were trying to achieve without telling the designer or shipyard how to do it or what to do, because that would stifle innovation. And because we have a working model, not only of our organisation for running the training at sea, but a working, very good model in terms of a sailing brig, that is there clear to be seen. But in order to make it a 21st century flagship, rather than a new one of the old, we needed to give the architect and shipyard scope for innovation. And that was hugely influential, as well as cost, of course, but it was hugely influential in the design and our choice of contractor, on top of the high quality of the Astilla Rosconden shipyard in northern Spain. And I'm delighted to have Javier Llaneza, who is technical guru in the shipyard, who I work very closely with, who has the challenge of getting all our requirements into a very small box, and believe you me, including extra things which we don't have now, like water makers in the right place, sewage treatment plants to meet the noise, and vibration levels and all the other things that just weren't made in the same way back in the late 60s, early 70s. And masquerading as Antonio Pacheco on his name tally, don't be fooled, that is Alvaro Garcia, who is here from Gondon too. And I suggest if you have any follow-up interest, there are two people to collar after the event. And I'm very glad you're here. So in taking forward the development, we spent a lot of time around the table before contract let, developing the specification and the general arrangement, because that is key in a design and build project. You need to know roughly you're going to get what you envisaged. So developing the general arrangement and the specification without turning it into a hugely thick volume was very key to us when we signed the contract with them, knowing that we probably going to get the right thing. So in that contract, at the time of going to let the contract, there was still one very key important design issue which had not been bottomed out, and that is to whether we went for an innovative new hull shape and keel design or a conventional keel design and hull shape like the current ship, which we knew, trusted and loved, and it had not given us any problem. But by going for the same as before, you're not improving anything. And in late 1960s, when Colin Moodin developed the current Royalist's hull, it was a semi-step change up from the sort of sailing cargo vessel hulls that had gone on before, and more in line with a racing yacht. Well, now in 2013-14, this is another step up which we needed to test. So we had two options at contract: long keel, same as we've got, or innovative design from Acubens, who are the Spanish naval architects subcontracted by Astilleros Gondon. So we had to put it through the tank tests for resistance and performance in the seaway. And we built, the Solent University in Southampton built a 1/12 scale model of Acubens' design of hull, and we put it through its paces, and it came out very well. We used the same model for manoeuvring tests. Because it's got a separate rudder from the keel this time, we needed to make sure that its turning performance was good and it wasn't unstable in any shape or form. And I thought the middle photograph at the top kind of interesting. One day, my daughter, you'll look like that. And that is a picture of the model in the foreground with a Stavros Niarchos from the Tall Ships Youth Trust just leaving Southampton docks in the background. Very apt. So those tests went very well, and we also did a measure, more theoretical than practical actually, because of obvious reasons, of the roll period, because the roll period in a sail training vessel is very important. If it's too stiff, then the tops of the mast will be whipping around, and that's not very comfortable if you happen to be up there managing a sail. But if it's too slow, you're probably not going to have the right righting moments. So life is a big compromise. Next comes the motive power. The ship should be exactly the same, really, in the rig from our current ship. But because she is longer and wider, and the masts are in slightly different positions, different size of sails, all that sort of thing, we had to do, in a slightly smaller scale model, wind tunnel tests in Southampton, which we did. They went very well. They actually pointed out some very fundamental things that weren't quite right in the rig you see there, which are now changed. The whole point of model testing is make the mistakes there and not later on. And they went very well. And some of our sea cadets came down to witness some of this, and they weren't half impressed, but actually not with the model. They wanted to stand in the wind tunnel and have their hats blown off. So really from the contract signature, this design and build contract, it is a challenge doing the design and the build in one contract. It is a challenge, but it helps reduce the risk for the trustees and the investors. Key date of steel cutting started only on the 13th of March this year. By early April, we were able to lay the keel, and the key sea cadets came out to northern Spain to the shipyard to do that. And you see the keel, which mysteriously appeared from the sky, because Astilleros Gondon is built on a huge cliff face. I don't know how they do it, but they do. It appeared from the sky and was lowered onto the blocks on the slipway. That went very well, and a bit of an iconic picture. They were trying out the keel sections for size, and so when the ship is finished, they know if they're naughty, there's a box to put them in. So the keel was the first of several blocks, and here you see the keel. One side has been left open there for ballasting as the ship progresses, and the stern section is on there. Very soon afterwards, the bow section was put on, and roughly a month or so ago, pre-tenting for painting and fitting out, there she was, a complete hull, most of, if not all, the steel work together. And she's not that big. She's only just under 24-metre load line length, 32-metre bowsprit to stern. But nevertheless, a substantial vessel for us. A challenge for Gondon because same number of systems for a bigger vessel, but a tiny tin box to put them in. Some of the subcontractors that the shipyard are using, Regenassa, they do interior furnishings and carpentry for many ships. A mock-up of some of the cadets' bunks on the left-hand side there. Formula Masts in the United Kingdom are building the aluminium masts and spars, and their subcontractor, Rigmaster UK, who are providing all the standing and running rigging, we have known for many years in supporting the current Royalist, which gives us very great confidence that the motive power for the ship is going to be right, robust, and we get a good in-service support, which is hugely important on something which is fundamental safety for the cadets. And on the right, a view down the engine removal hatch into an engine room where if you can fit a cigarette paper when it's finished, you'd be very lucky. Now that's really where we are, but we know we've got these items to finish until we get acceptance. And we are very mindful by accepting the ship in February. We have a very good test of going back across the Bay of Biscay. And in January, February this year, the 8 storms off the northern coast of Spain and up to 19-metre waves. We might just wait for a little bit. So now I'd like to hand over, because this phase has been through by 2 completed vessels, and they can give you an insight into where they're at. Thank you very much. If people do have questions, because they might be common, shall we keep them to the end? But I'm happy if anybody's got a quick one now. Excellent.
Good afternoon. On to the next presentation about the new Shabab Oman. This presentation focused more on the design side, whereas the first presentation was more out of the client and the owner's side. To give you, this is my first time on the STI conference. Our background is not as much in the square rigger design, but more in a yacht design. So I'll give you a really short presentation about who we are, and then I'll go on to Shabab Oman. So we are in the yachting business. The company was started in '69. and I took over the company in 2004. And since then, Jerry, the name giver of the company, Jerry Dijkstra, is sailing his own boat, which you see here, to more colder areas, the higher latitudes. And he sometimes spends his day in the office when he's back in Holland. First 10 years was more racing orientated for Jerry, with a number of boats and also his own design called the Best of R1, which he did an All-Star in. The second 10 years of the company's life were spent in Indonesia, where we were involved in setting up a naval architecture company in Jakarta that was designing laminated wooden boats, making use of the local timbers, but using them in a more effective way for their use. Then since 91, I joined Jerry in 91, and we focused on yacht design. We are based in Amsterdam, and we now have 10 guys in the office, all naval architects. We design sailing yachts only. We don't do any motor or commercial motor yachts in all kinds of sizes. The smallest size is starting at around 6 meter, day sail boats or cruising boats, and that goes up to the bigger sizes. We did a lot of the J-class, new designs. Main core business is like super yachts for private owned clients. Sometimes they charter with the boats, starting with around 30 meter and going up to quite large vessels. What we like about them that they're all different, and each one has their own speciality about it, be it the rig, be it the hull, be it that it has to be an extra high speed type of boat. Currently, our biggest size boats in build is one in Turkey, it's a 140 meter wooden construction, fully laminated wood. And the other one in build is a next step up from Maltese Falcon, which is the vessel here on the low side with the dyno-rig. We now have a second dyno-rig in build at Oceanco, which is 105 meters. Some others, specials as we call them, or studies. We designed a ship for Greenpeace, the Rainbow Warrior, which is a combination of sail and motor, so a motor sailor, which can sail around with a very effective way of a hybrid drive, electric and diesel propulsion. Going on to the square riggers. Up to now we have designed 3 square riggers. The first one was Stad Amsterdam. And during that build also the Cisne Branco was built for the Brazilian Navy. And as latest is now the Shabab Oman, and they were all built by Bedame Shipyard. We have some other concepts we are working on for square riggers. This is a 48 meter we're designing for the guys sitting here in the audience as well, the Island Trust. And we did some other concepts for larger vessels. And these are all sail training type of boats. Going on to Shabab Oman. These are the points I would like to cover. I will try to go more into the design later on. But first I would like to explain how we handled the project, or what the phases in the project were in this ship, as they are a little bit different than what I normally hear how these boats are commissioned. On Stad Amsterdam and also on Shabab Oman, we were directly contacted by the client. So it was not through a yard. It was the client who came to us to do a design first. So we were contacted by the Charles Kendall Group for the procurement of a sail training ship for Oman. And we developed a concept design with them. And then we were sitting in the office together with Charles Kendall Group and also Chris Biggins, the former captain of Shabab Oman 1. And we developed in detail what they needed and what they wanted as a design. And when that was set, we developed a specification to go with it. And then we went out for tendering. We had 3 yards where we tendered. And that took, of course, some time and discussions with each of the yards. And then after a few months, Damen Shipyard won the contract for the ship. And only in that stage, we formed then the group that did the detailed engineering for the ship. So you build up a team first by looking into the design, and then later on choose the yard to go with it. From that stage on, we worked for Damen Shipyard and not for the client anymore, and that make it more clear for the client that he can say to the yard, I want the ship is set in the first concept specification, and now there's no risk that the naval architect can be working for the client and be asked to do things for the yard, and so like a split conflict of interest. These are the main particulars for the ship, as set in the concept. And to come to these main particulars, we always compare them with existing vessels. And we do that on the basis of main particulars like sail area, displacement, and waterline length. On the horizontal axis, there's the ratio of the waterline length versus displacement. So the lighter vessel for its waterline, you will find more to the right, and the heavier for the waterline more to the left. And on the vertical axis is the sail area for waterline length. And then on the diagonal lines, you can get a feeling for the speed potential of the ship. So that's the sail area for displacement, the power for its displacement. And that's where we try to position the ship in the first stage. The design brief from Oman was to have a fast clipper that would be capable of performing well in the STA races. So we gave her plenty of sail area. And it here shows how she compares to other square riggers. The speed potential does not say that it can actually sail that fast, because to be able to carry the sail area, you of course need the stability to carry it. Otherwise you will only be reefing your ship when it starts blowing, and then it cannot transform the sail area, the wind speed, into actual sailing power. General arrangement. The basis for the general arrangement was Stad Amsterdam. So it has the same in the poop, the aft deck area. It has the long room, but also the captain and some VIP cabins. Officers are a deck below, above the engine room. Forward of the officers, the galley, crew messes, and crew area. And on the lower deck, the trainees and the engine room. During the concept design, we do a lot of 3D visualization to work with the client and to be able to show him the areas of interest on the boat, so that he already has a feel that he can walk on the boat and see the items of his interest. On the forecastle, it was did a lot of work on the anchor arrangement, where on Stad Amsterdam it was a deck below. We now brought it on top of the deck. In the midships, the deck house supports the boats. And here there was the Omani wanted 3 large ribs, or 2 large ribs and 1 smaller rib. In the end, the arrangement is chosen for the smaller rib on the side as a SOLAS, as a rescue boat with its own crane. On the poop deck, they required an officer's deck to be able to command the ship from above the poop. So there's above the bridge there's wings where the officers can walk, and the steering station is then in front of the bridge. And then further aft on the poop deck there's the main skylight over the salon and the aft entrance hatch. She's a dual prop. It's a Navy boat. She does not have to comply with any class, but she's built according to Lloyd's and meets SOLAS wherever practical. And because of a Navy vessel, they want a dual prop on the ship as well. We did some tank testing for the ship. The reason for that was optimizing the hull shape. Basis was the Stad Amsterdam hull again, but we want to make progress every time we do a new design. So in this case, we had the rig of Stad Amsterdam, of course, and we know the sail balance of Stad Amsterdam. So we didn't have to do any wind tunnel testing. We had the full-scale wind tunnel testing on board of Stad Amsterdam. And we optimized the hull, and we changed around with the deep depth of the box keel underneath the hull to optimize the sailing balance, so that you can sail with as least amount of rudder angle. Some detailing on deck. So when the construction started, Damen was involved in the hull construction and systems and the general arrangement, detailing, and our team was involved in everything from the deck up. So we had all the detailing on deck going on, all the woodwork, paneling, and later on the rig. There's a lot of detail in the ship. And I'll go back on some detailing when I show some photos later on paneling. The rig design itself was completely done in-house in detail, and we had some changes comparing to Stad Amsterdam to make the rig still look aesthetically really nice, but to improve the performance of the rig, the bracing angles, and to reduce maintenance. During the rig design, we joined up together with Richard Tefse from Sailmaster, who rigged the vessel when she was rigged in Vlissingen, and having him involved in the design process helped to speed up these things. This is the sail plan of the boat. Is again similar to Stad Amsterdam, only the sail area in total is about 20% larger, and that is the reason why we split up the topsail on the mizzen, where on Stad Amsterdam there's one topsail. We now have a lower and an upper. For the interior, we have traveled to Oman, and on their request to get a feel of their culture and their heritage, which had to be presented in the high quality areas of the interior. And for that we presented the designs in sketches to the client before the outfitter would start its work. This is not. It looks like a yacht. It feels a little bit like the yacht when you are in these high quality areas. The rest of the ship is a more commercial standard. So the crew areas, the galleys, and the trainee areas. The build of the ship was started at the Damen shipyard in Galați in Romania, building quite big ships there. They are used to building in blocks, where they outfit the blocks already with the systems that go in, and then fit the blocks together. The total build of that part took about a year before she was launched and towed to the Netherlands. The mast are three parts. The lower parts are in steel, and they were already fabricated in Galați as well and fitted to the boat before they towed her. So this was how she left Galați and how she came in Holland, in Flushing. And in Flushing, all the woodwork on deck was fitted, and the whole ship was rigged, and the final parts of the interior were installed. The rig itself was built in Germany at Stahlbau Nord under supervision of sailmaster again, and then transported to Flushing. The scroll work on the ship is quite ornate and as well influenced by Omani style. And for that, we had a special wood carving company involved to do the carving and fit them on the boat. The good thing in Flushing was that we were inside the shed, so she was launched and she could float on her own keel. But having her inside was a really good way of fitting all the woodwork on deck in a protected area. No rain and no snow in the Dutch winters. And Richard could also rig the lower mast rigging already in the shed. Then she goes out to fit the last topmast. And she's ready to do some testing to fit all the yards, and the sails were already on the yards, all the rigging was on the yards to hang it in. Test setting of the sails alongside the quay. Luckily they all fitted. And we could go out for some first trials. The Omani had a schedule of, or they did a training session. They hired Stad Amsterdam for the training, and they did 6 weeks of training in the Carib on the ship, where the first 5 weeks they had a whole program to run through, and the last week they took over Stad Amsterdam and they sailed with the Omani crew. So they had a really good training to be able to handle this ship, because he's quite a different animal than the current Shabab. The official handover. During the project, there was an Omani overseeing team taking care of all the drawing delivery and checking all the drawings, and they were followed the ship from Galați to Flushing in the Netherlands. And then during the last few weeks, the crew was involved in getting the boat ready. So these are the final pictures of the interior. And on deck, we designed the paneling itself with a twist of Omani style with the top arcs. It's all teak-leaded. Yeah, very direct. This is underneath the officer's deck, so that's a change from Stad Amsterdam. Finally, I would like to show you, there's some footage made during their delivery to Oman when they were in the Met. And I think I have some 3 minutes footage of that. Can you start that up? The ship is arriving in Oman, I think, as we speak, for the national holiday. There is it's a holiday, yeah. Actually, I don't know. Birthday of Sultan. So they and I suppose they are gonna train the boat to be able to handle her, and hopefully we see her really soon in the next STA races. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I almost can say good evening because it's a little bit late, but we will make it till 6:05. I go back in the history a little bit because I'm talking about the old Alexander von Humboldt for just a few minutes. You all certainly know the Alexander von Humboldt, this unique ship with its green hull and the impressive green sails. Almost 25 years she sailed under the flag of the DSST, that's the foundation. In her first life, I don't show pictures because you don't like to see my tears in my eyes. In her first life, she was a light vessel in Germany, built in 1906. After her dismissal in 1986, she was taken over by the Sail Training Association of Germany and handed over later on to the DSST, to the foundation. She was commissioned in 1988. After 25 years in service, the operation and maintenance of the vessel was so expensive that we decided to build a new ship. One of the captains, Mr. Reimer Peters, some of you maybe know him, he had the plans, construction plans for a sailing vessel in his files, rigged as a bark that would meet our expectations for this new ship. Originally, it was planned to build a vessel named Passat Wind. However, due to financial reasons, the realization was impossible. These plans were modified by our building teams according to our desires and certified for worldwide operation. That was a wrong foil. The hull and the technical infrastructure was finalized in Bremen at the BVT shipyard and brought into the water with extraordinary technical effort. After towing to Bremerhaven, the construction was carried on at the BVT shipyard number 2. The installed navigating system is state-of-the-art. Dual Transas 4000 Actis radar come easy to navigate. At each side, whoops, where's my each side? Ah, yeah, here we are. At each side, and at the center conning station, a control panel is installed with all maneuvering devices. You can see them here. That makes it easy to navigate and to moor the vessel and unmoor the vessel. A Volvo engine, main engine with 750 horsepower output is installed and working on a variable pitch propeller. On economical revolution, we can do 8 knots, maximum revolutions 11 knots. 2 strong gensets are on board and 1 emergency genset. The rigging was built in traditional way of construction from steel. The yards of the upper top sails, the top gallant sails, and the royals are movable. These. The handling of the heavy yards needs a lot of manpower, therefore we installed 6 sail winches, also able to support the bracing. And here you can see the difference between, on the old ship, between the static Korean rig and the historic or traditional rig. All sails can be operated from deck, and the mizzenmast is rigged in the well-known German style. I learned it from my grandfather's brother, which means in 3 parts, 1, 2, 3, with a lower spanker, upper spanker, and gaff topsail. The total sailing service is 1,360 square meters, and that gives us a good speed. Under sails, she should make 14 knots under ideal situation. In October 7th, 2011, the ship was christened in Bremerhaven of the name Alexander von Humboldt II and put into service. Already the first test voyages revealed a very good sailing ship, which does operate at a height to the wind of about 50 degrees. The stability starts a bit negative, but is then increasing steadily. This guarantees a very good behavior at sea. The interior furnishing complies with modern shipbuilding. I have to switch a little bit faster now. Here we are. With modern shipbuilding standards, the mess room is designed for 80 people at a time. A saloon is available. All cabins are furnished with en-suite bathroom. The trainee cabins accommodate 4 bunks. The galley is also very high standard, technical standard. 2 cooks are taking care of the crew. A doctor is always on board. The hospital is equipped according to the German Merchant Marine standard. A seminar room is furnished with notebook and beamer and designed for 40 people. The ship's capacity is 24 crew and 55 crew members. This is our schedule for 2015. You see, we already passed the vessel to all sail training events. For day trips in Germany, the ship holds a security certificate for traditional ships, in addition to the safety certificate for special purpose ships. That allows us to carry up to 250 persons, but only in German waters. The first 3 sections of the maiden voyage to the Canary Islands were only operated by regular crew to optimize the accustomed phase for the new ship. For the comfort of the crew, the vessel is fully air-conditioned and equipped with an osmosis water maker with a capacity of 10 metric tons per day. The total tank capacity is 50 tons for fresh water and 60 tons for fuel. That allows us to stay at sea for about 30 days. According to MARPOL, a 4-chamber biologic sewage system in connection with a vacuum toilet system is installed. Wet garbage can be stored in a reefer room at about 4 degrees centigrade, and bottles can be smashed in a special device. That's very important, because Beck's beer bottles are very, very strong. The laundry room is equipped with 2 industrial washing machines and dryers. The old Alexander von Humboldt joined most of the tall ship races in all these years. With the new ship, we will also do so. That's a promise. Therefore, she's called Windjammer for the use. For a good service to our trainees and crew, we employ 4 ladies in the office. They take care of the trainee booking, crew booking, shop, and financial affairs. But at the end, we must confess that we made one big mistake. We exceeded the gross tonnage with the gross tonnage of 763 metric tons, the magic limit of 500 gross tons. Therefore, she is the special purpose ship and classified as a SOLAS vessel, and that makes it very expensive. She's under the rules of ISPS, ISM, compulsory in pilotage under the responsibility of agency in nearly every port. The cost for these services are a big burden for the foundation besides the financial expenditure. Thank you very much for your attention. Made it.